All right, I did make it, but it was a little scary. I had a police person in front of me and one behind, and it was terrifying. And they knew everything about me, which is absolutely insane. So yes, I want to talk to you about ends to end the day. But when we think about end, we get really, really scary. When we think about death, we get super scared. So if you ask the average person, what superpower would you want? They generally tell you, I want to live forever. The quest for immortality has been going on forever. But the truth is that the first step to immortality is that we have to die. And I want to share a little story with you. This curve that you see on the screen, this is in Italy. This is where I'm from. It's on the freeway that goes from Milan, where I grew up, to the beach near Genova. And the 1st of June of many years ago, I was in a car accident with my boyfriend. We were going to the beach for the weekend. He was driving too fast. He hit that wall right there, and the car started turning. And he died on the spot. And of course, I didn't. And we were young, we were in our early 20s. And I was really, really angry. How dare he leave me? How could he do that to me? And of course, because we were so young, and it was well before the internet, we hadn't thought about what we would do with things. He did not have a will. Of course, he was 22. And if he had had a will, it would have looked a little bit like this. I leave everything to this person, but this thing I leave to my mom, and that person I really didn't like, so I will not give them anything, etc., etc. Because he didn't leave behind a will, he also didn't leave behind instructions on what to do if he were to pass. We don't think about that stuff when we're in our 20s. I happen to know that he wanted his organs to be donated. He wanted to be cremated. He did not want a grave. But his parents had other ideas, and so they didn't donate his organs, and they bought a really nice plot at the Monumental Cemetery in Milan. I went to the cemetery for his funeral, and I never went back. What I do have from him, it's something that looks a little bit like this. It's a box, and in this box I have things that he's left me. I've got a watch, I've got some jewelry, I have photos of us, I have letters. And the beautiful thing about this box is that I can choose when I want to engage with the memory of him, and I can choose when not to. The box, I can open it, I can look at the things inside, and then I can close it and move on with my life. And I have moved on. I have a happy life. I've traveled the world. I've lived in many places. I have kids. I have a family. And every so often I can go back. And this idea that we can engage with memory, because what we do when we design is creating memories, designing for experiences, is so important that people think about this. And there is this letter that I would like to share with you. It was on Medium a number of years ago. And it's this guy who knew, Raphael Zelter, who knew he was going to die. I'm not going to let you read the whole thing. But what is important is that he wrote this letter to his son. And he said this: if you're reading this, I'm dead. I'm sorry, I knew I was going to die, and I didn't want to tell you. So I wrote these letters for you, and you must not open them before the right moment. Okay, this is our deal. Then he says, I'm not leaving letters for your mom because she's got the car. But the idea that we can choose when we are in the right frame of mind to engage with things that are painful is extremely important. So, and this idea that we engage with the memory of people and things that have meant something to us, it's not doesn't just happen to people that we know, it happens to people that we don't know. And so musicians that we respect, we go and visit their graves, we listen to their music, we go and look at paintings, we bring flowers. We make an active choice of deciding when to put our attention there or not. The reality, though, is that we don't live in that kind of society anymore. Our lives are not just the lives that we're living here by being here, present physically. We also have digital lives. And our digital lives carry with themselves a wealth of experiences, a wealth of things, a wealth of artifacts and things that we make. And so much like we engage with the physical dead, we may choose to engage with the digital dead. Now, Prince decided not to have a tombstone, but people still go and visit his obituary. I mean, if you look at the very bottom of the screen, there are 35,000 people who went and visited the website and left a memory. But these are the things that we choose to do. Then there are the things that come to us. I bet most of you are on LinkedIn. Every so often, when I log on to LinkedIn, this is what I see. That name right there, Charles Hopkins, this is a former colleague of mine. We used to work together at UCLA when I was in California. And every so often, LinkedIn reminds me that I'm not connected with him. Except Charles died. And Charles died without a family. He didn't have a partner. His parents were dead. He didn't have siblings. And granted, Charles and I were not particularly close. This was someone that I work with. I mean, someone I liked, but when I see his name, I don't feel this angst. What I do feel, though, is like, well, maybe I feel a little guilty. Maybe I should have gotten to know him a little better. Maybe I could have talked to him differently. And Charles was, as I said, he didn't have a family, but he had friends. So he was on Facebook. And his birthday was April 16th. And every April 16th, Jorge, who used to work with us, writes, "Happy birthday, Charles." Now, I don't know if Jorge knows that Charles is dead, because he's moved. He lives in South America. So I don't know if that's his way of honoring the memory, or if he's just saying happy birthday, and maybe he wonders why Charles never answered. And I don't have the heart to tell him, to send him a message and say, hey, look, I don't know if you know. Now, I'm only going to give you one number today, a set of numbers. That number, 13,214,000,000, is the number, roughly, of social media accounts existing online at the moment. 2.4 billion is the number of social media users. So if this math is correct, each of us has about 5.5 social media accounts. Some more, some less. So if I were to look at me, this is what it would look like, right? Except it looks a little more like this, doesn't it? And these are just the things that I could remember. What about all those accounts that I opened once, never used, and that are floating around? What about Allo? Who ever signed up for Allo? You? You, me, and 3 other people, and someone sent me a notification yesterday. I was blown away. But digital life is not just social media, is it? So when we think about dying, it's not just the physical, it's not just the social media. There is another kind of death. So if you think about your lives, you do everything online. You buy travel. You may have utility accounts. You may have tax accounts. And so if we think about this concept of memory hitting us in the face, what can we do? What is our part in preventing that pain for the users of the things that we design, for the things that we make every day? What can we do? Now, I live in England, and England is a fairly civilized country, not as civilized as Switzerland, but civilized enough. So in England, they thought about this, and they thought about the fact that when someone passes away, they may be getting a pension, they may be on benefits, they may have an account with the NHS, the National Health System. So there is this service called Tell Us Once. Effectively, when someone near to you passes away, you pick up the phone, you call the government once, and that sets a chain reaction so that all the services associated with that person gets shut down at the same moment. That means that someone who is bereaved doesn't have to go through the pain of calling and saying, hey, my mom is dead, my dad is dead, etc., over and over again. In Italy, where I'm from, we're not as civilized, but we are, the government digital services is doing some fantastic things. Now, I don't expect that you will read Italian. So this is the website where you go when your spouse or your parent dies. If they're getting a state pension, you can get a transfer. If you're a dependent or you're a spouse, that pension will be given to you. And they make you, so they've done this really lovely user journey that you can do all online. But there is that thing over there that says, I declare that I have been indicted and found guilty of the murder of the person whose pension I am claiming. Yes? No. You think? I mean, whoever, you guys are designers, right? I'm a designer as well. Whoever designed this must burn in hell. By the way, this is a screenshot that I took when my mom passed, and I was helping my dad go through the process. And my dad is losing his eyesight, fortunately, in this case, because I was reading to him, and he's like, oh, what does that say? Oh, no, Dad, don't worry, it's not important. Are we insane? Who does this? I certainly hope you don't do that. But the thing is, it's not just the government. It's utilities. This is my friend Emma. She lives in England. She had to call over and over and over to get her dad's electricity bill turned down. And every time, it's that little tear. Every time is remembering that your loved one isn't with you anymore. So because, we live in the first world and we think about these kind of things, governments have started thinking about these kind of problems, and this is not a problem that we just have as designers. This is a problem that might go into law. Think about succession law. If you're a famous singer and you have, like when Avicii committed suicide, he left this body of digital work. And whose was it? Was it his mom's? Was it his own? So in the States, they like to think about these kind of things because they like to, they're litigious. They started passing digital estate into law. Maryland is the first state that passed the law. And effectively, they are recognizing that an increasing percentage of our lives happen online. And so all of our digital possessions should be considered part of our physical estate. Except, after this law was passed in Maryland and 27 other states, they revised it, and it got so confusing that the official advice is, don't rely on the law. And this is the official advice that you get. There's also, but it's not just the legal bit. It's also the TNCs, the terms and conditions that we sign or that we don't read and we sign up to every time we open a service. So Yahoo, for instance, says that users will have privacy when they die. Now, if you're a Yahoo user in Maryland, what applies? Is it Yahoo saying that your stuff is yours, or is it Maryland's law that says that no, your stuff is your family's? And so it's really not unusual. We shouldn't be surprised that we see articles like this. Facebook doesn't let the parents into a dead daughter's account. Apple doesn't let you unlock an iPad. And that's because when we sign up to these kind of things, we don't read that iTunes, even if you have a family account, is for end user only. Now they're changing this. But the most important thing is that if we don't think about these kind of things, that can happen anywhere, anytime. It could happen right now. This is a friend of mine. He works at Facebook, of all places, sent this tweet because a piece of rebar fell from a truck and pierced his windshield. I mean, fortunately, nothing happened, but he could have died, just like my boyfriend died. I mean, we could have a massive earthquake right now. I know you don't have earthquakes in Switzerland, but this building could collapse. So, are you ready? If that were to happen, are you ready? And more importantly, what do you want? Think about it. Now, you might have thought about this. You might have thought that considering all the options that there are when you die, you want to be buried into a biodegradable pod and you want to become a tree. And maybe because you're a designer and you work in tech, you want to be a tree with a photovoltaic generator and the decomposition of your body is going to make light and it's going to be awesome. Or maybe you're a musician and you want to be turned into music. So this is a funerary urn and that little stick is hollow and you can put, after cremation, you can put ashes and you can continue making music in your life. These are all beautiful designs. Or maybe you've read about Dr. McDouglas. Who's familiar with the concept of the weight of a soul? Wow, 2 people. That dates us, by the way. So in 1901, this doctor set out to figure out how much a soul weighed. And so he did user research, like you guys all do, went into a old people home, waited for that moment right before they die, put them on a scale, and then weighed them right after they died, and he figured out with absolute certainty that the weight of a soul is 21 grams. And since you're thinking about what you're going to be doing with your ashes once you die, well, this sex toy contains exactly 21 grams of ashes. So if you want to come back as this, you can. Now, I know what I want for myself. For me, I don't want to be remembered for my Twitter, my Instagram, the videos. If you have to remember me, just remember me because I'm a weird woman on this stage, because we've talked, because we've said hi, because all those things. For my body, I want a Viking funeral pyre. Just put me on a boat and burn me. But then I think, well, this is not just about me, right? I have 2 daughters, and maybe they want something, but I really don't want to be in a tomb. And here in Switzerland, actually, there is a company that will take your ashes, compress them, and turn you into diamonds. And so, my daughters can have 2. I'm small, so some ash from the Viking pyre is going to be good. But that's it, I am this person. I'm not a body. I'm not a diamond. I'm not I'm not that. So I started thinking seriously about, well, what do I want for my digital legacy? I want to be ready. I know that death can come at any point in time. I want to be ready. And I started doing some research. And so I looked at all these services. This is called planned departure. There are plenty of services like this. Actually, I know the person behind this startup that promised to you that they will take care of your digital things. But the reality is that they're vaults. Effectively, you can store, you can give access. But what if you want to disappear? As I told you, I don't want to be remembered by all that stuff that I put online. So I looked at Japan. In Japan, Yahoo has now discontinued, but used to have this service called Yahoo Endings, where they were promising to be able to delete the entirety of your presence from the internet. Turns out, it's not quite like that. And on and on and on and on, to the point that there are aggregators like the Digital Beyond that collects all sorts of information on how and what you might be able to do with your digital assets. And the reality is that if you look at the tech world, if you look at the products that you all design, things are moving a little bit for people like me, and for people like you probably. So this is Google. Google has this hidden feature called Inactive Account Manager. And I really, really like it because it allows you to set a threshold of time, or a threshold of inactivity rather, after which you can decide what happens to your Google products. So effectively, you can say, if for 3 months I've not logged on to Google, YouTube, whatever, take my email and delete it. Take my photos and send them to, and give them to my daughter. Google Wave, I don't know if you guys remember it, because you're probably too young, that burn in hell, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it allows you to auto-reply to emails, and you can write your own snarky messages. But what I really love about it is that it's granular, and it allows you to think carefully about what you want to do. Facebook, who we love to hate, at least in England and in the States and probably here, Facebook gives you some option, and it allows you to designate someone as an executor and to delete your own account. But again, all these things require the intervention of a person. What if you want to delete yourself? I mean, the reality is that there's not much that we can do. You can go to court. You can store all of your passwords in a password manager and then tell someone, go and delete them. But what I'm thinking is, think about your email. If you're like me and you keep emails, in my email I have emails from 15 years ago. Do I want my daughters to potentially go in and read of that one time that I had a fight with her father, and maybe I sent an email to my best friend saying, your father is an idiot, and da-da-da-da. That was a moment in time. Without context, is going to represent me in a different way. And do I really want to leave that to my kids? So I'm sure that those of you, none of us has a double life or a triple life, except if you ask the Swiss police. But think about it. Think about what you have in there. Think about what your mom, your dad could read and take out of context. Potentially the damage that you can do unwillingly for something that you've written without thinking, or maybe you were drunk 15 years ago. So I thought, well, maybe I can create my own internet kill switch. Meaning, if I can use Google Inactive Account Manager to delete to start that chain reaction, maybe I can write up a recipe and set a chain of things in motion, because that's what I want. I want to be forgotten, right? And in Europe, we very much have this right to be forgotten. The reality is that, and I hope that there are engineers in this crowd and coders, the reality is that you can't do this because there are no standards. So there is this website called Just Delete Me that for every online service will tell you how easy or how difficult it is to delete an account. And if you're ever played Animal Crossing, then you're gonna be living forever as a zebra roaming the internet. Now, I'm sure that at this point you wonder, why should I care? You should care because you and the people that you're training right now are designing for the next billion of users. And the next billion of users is gonna look a little bit like this. We are designing for ghosts. And for those, and we are not designing for choice. So if you want to go like this, if you want to be remembered forever for the things that you did online, you can. You can live forever on the internet. You're going to be immortal. You can be in a memorial stick. You know, we can have these virtual cemeteries, and anybody can plug you in. But it's not just this. I mean, right now, technology has gone beyond anything Sir Tim Berners-Lee imagined when he created the internet. We really can live forever, not just in 2D, not just in representation of emails, videos, et cetera. Artificial intelligence can make us live forever as avatars. And those of you who work in that area do know that this is not sci-fi. It's not just... Don't push the boundaries. If you've seen this episode, you know that it's not just that she eventually can talk to him and see him on a video. There is a default body that you can buy and activate with this artificial intelligence. And the question becomes, is this default body, this activated default body, that person, or is it not? Is the sum, is the product of our memories elaborated by a computer me? Is it you? You gotta watch this if you've not seen it. So I was really opposed to this kind of scenario. I was opposed because, as I said, I want to go away, but I was wrong. And I was wrong because that is my choice. It might not be your choice. It might not be my daughter's choice. It might not be the choice of your families. And my friend Pete Traynor, back in England, has been doing loads of work in this space. And he's worked with this guy, James. James passed away last year from a horrible degenerative disease. And they did exactly what they did in Black Mirror. They collected the entirety of James's body of work in his 26 years of life, and they created an avatar. They put it into a robot, but it's more a chatbot that you can go and talk to. And if you want to talk to James, you can. And James's mom, and James's dad, and James's little sister find incredible comforts. So my position was really arrogant. It's not about binary yes, no. It's about designing these things so that people can choose. It's about not just designing the beginning, it's about designing the end, thinking about it. It's not about focusing just on onboarding and getting users in. It's about thinking about how we offboard people. For those of us who want to go, Deleting someone, deleting a user account, I said there are no standards. It's as easy as this. One line in the database. Do you want your data? Yes or no? Boom, delete me, gone. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. I did mention, the pension thing when my mom passed away. My mom's birthday was October 30th, last month. And for all of September, that's my mom, Francesca. Her birthday is October 30th. For all of September and all of October 2017, this is what Facebook was telling me. Except, my mom died in September. And deleting her Facebook account or memorializing it wasn't the first priority. So I just didn't use Facebook, which was probably a really, really good thing. So what I'm asking you to do is this. I'm asking you, when you leave here, when you go back to work on Monday, when you go and work on the amazing things that you do, think about the end. Think about how the things that you're making right now can be gotten out of. Because we're only ever one decision away from a completely different future. You are the ones, we are the ones who are designing this future. And as I said, it takes one decision. And guess what? That decision is yours. Thank you.
We open up for questions.